My name is Garland Favorito. I am a career IT professional, co-founder of VoterGA, and the elections director for the Constitution Party of Georgia. VoterGA is a nonpartisan, nonprofit, all-volunteer organization. We've been leading the election integrity movement here in Georgia for 16 years. I want to pose the question today that's the most important question to really ask about the 2020 general election in Georgia. And is there compelling evidence of Georgia election fraud? That's the question I think we need to answer. But before we do that, I need to do at least one slide about how we got here. First of all, I wrote to the Secretary of State and system evaluators back in 2002 that the systems that they were being evaluated or under evaluation were unconstitutional because they could not produce verifiable, auditable, and recount-capable results. The Secretary of State ignored us. The General Assembly legalized that kind of voting that cannot be audited, and the Secretary of the Secretary of State purchased the Diebold DRE system. In 2009, the Georgia Supreme Court denied our constitutional claims. And then in 2019, the U.S. District Court banned that system as unconstitutional, and the General Assembly then legalized a new form of system, unverifiable to the voter, that hides votes in barcodes. The Secretary of State then purchased the Dominion Democracy Suite 5.5 system. It's a BMD system, ballot marking device. But the U.S. District Court has already found that it does not meet Georgia law. So with that as the background, here are what my roles were in the 2020 election here in Georgia, the general election. I was the State Farm Arena Observer. I was a Fulton County Tabulation Observer. I was an audit monitor, and I was a recount monitor. In addition to that, Constitution Party of Georgia organized dozens of recount and audit monitors in dozens of counties throughout the state of Georgia. As a Fulton Tabulation Observer, I noticed an abnormal 20,000 vote spike for Joe Biden, while the president's votes appeared to have actually gone down a tad. I submitted an affidavit about that. I notified the elections director, the board of elections at Fulton County, and the county attorney, and I made an open records request for the interim results, but I never received a response. As an audit monitor, we noticed that there were 3 boxes of 100% Biden ballots, 3 complete boxes, which is almost mathematically impossible. In addition, 4 auditors detected potentially fraudulent absentee ballots. I say that these are potentially fraudulent because they detected that the ballots were not creased from mailing, they were not marked with a writing instrument such as a pen or a pencil, they appeared to have toner copy instead, and there were some differences in ballot stock. I filed an open records request to view those ballots in the custody of the elections director and the division, but my request was ignored. That would have settled the whole issue as to whether or not they were fraudulent or not, and it probably would have settled who won the election as well. But that left me with one burning question: is how could those auditors during the count have found invalid ballots? Well, let me take you to State Farm Arena and let's investigate that question a little bit further. I want to walk you through some election day chronology, but before we do that, I want to just try to give you an idea of the room. The room is a curved room. It's like a semicircle, and you cannot see from one end of the circle to the other. So you come in the door on the left-hand side, and there's an observation area to the left. But you can see part of that room, but you cannot see back in the back right corner. There's just no visibility. The room itself is a violation, I believe, of Georgia law. So let's go through the chronology really quickly. 6:07 a.m. approximately, there was a leaky toilet or urinal that was falsely reported as a water main break. There was no water main break, but the supervisor delayed the starting of mail-in ballot processing for 2 hours. The closest leaky toilet does not abut to the wall where the ballots are being processed, and there does not appear to have been any activity there to move ballots out of the way and that sort of thing in case there was water. But at 8:22 a.m., you'll see a woman in the videos that the president's team presented to the Senate last week. You'll see a woman put a skirted table into this room, and the woman has a blonde braids, and she moves the skirted table on, which is also a violation of Georgia law, I believe. You cannot have skirted tables. We certainly did not have skirted tables in the audit or the recount whatsoever. So that seems to be another violation. At 9:30 a.m., the ballot processing begins. It continues through the day as normal. And about 10 p.m., you'll see the woman in blonde braids again come out and makes an announcement that the processing is going to stop for the night, according to 2 affidavits that are on file. 10:40 p.m., you'll see that the ballot processing stops, but the monitors are still there. And they continue to hang out for a while until they decide that nothing left is going to be done. And they leave along with the Fox 5 reporter who was also there at 10:55. 11:03, the woman with the blonde braids pulls out the first suitcase of absentee ballots out from under the skirted table. Then another woman pulls another case out from under the skirted table, and then the supervisor pulls out another case out from that same skirted table, 11:03, 4, and 5 approximately. 11:10, by that time the scanning of the ballots has been continuing and does continue illegally for almost 2 hours. There appear to be 4 scanners in this this picture, and there are at least 4, and then there's those scanners can do at least 3 and if not 5,000 ballots per hour, and that took place for at least 2 hours, so you can do the math on that and see that that could be anywhere from 15 to 25, 30, or even 35,000 ballots. All of that is a direct violation of Georgia law. There can be no dispute about that. You cannot do elections activity without monitors present. About 12:55, the scanners leave after scanning all those ballots onto memory cards. And about 40 minutes later, at 1:35, you'll see this tremendous spike of Joe Biden votes on the election line feed. You'll see that down towards the bottom of this screen, and then you'll also see the times for each upload, that each interim result, and everything looks normal until you get to that one spike that occurred about a half an hour or 40 minutes after these folks had finished scanning what seems to be obviously illegal ballots, and tens of thousands of them. At 1:40 a.m., the monitors returned after they were notified that the counting was still going on. They didn't realize it. And by that time, tens of thousands of votes, 15, 25, maybe even 35,000 votes had been scanned illegally in violation of Georgia law. So that leaves us with a couple of questions that are good questions, I think, that need to be asked. And the first question I think that would come up is, if those ballots are really fraudulent and they were scanned, why does the number of ballots cast match the number of voters voted in Fulton County? Well, the answer is, first of all, it doesn't. It didn't match. There were 340 or plus difference in the number of voters voted versus the number of ballots cast. So other considerations, if they did match, would be the fact that the ballot processing supervisor also controls the ballot tracking list. That's a security issue. If you wanted to make up new ballots, then you could also have the power to check off someone who has already been voted, even if they had not. If you remember, during this election, many people came to the polls and were told that they had already voted by absentee, when in fact they had not. But even another more serious issue is the fact that the Dominion system has a security flaw that allows memory cards to be substituted. This was an issue with Texas when they rejected the Dominion system prior to Georgia purchasing the system. A couple more questions that have come up. Did the monitors decide to leave on their own? That was a theory posed by the Secretary of State's IG in a declaration, which is, by the way, not a sworn affidavit, but a declaration, which has no meaning in a court of law. Well, the video shows that, that the announcement had ceased, and the monitor's affidavits confirm that. The scanning appears to stop before the monitors have left, and the monitors returned after finding out that the scanning continued. So that tells me those four things actually defeat the Secretary of State's claim and make it false, and those monitors, again, as I mentioned before, have affidavits to back up their contentions, whereas the Secretary of State's office does not. The other question that came up by the Secretary of State is, well, and the contention is that this was normal ballot processing. What you just saw in that video is normal. Well, first of all, it's not normal to have a skirted table to hide ballots under. That is a violation of Georgia law. Again, the ballots were hidden under a table. They were not processed from the wall as the normal ballots were processed. They appear to be in non-standard suitcases versus boxes, which are typically what absentee ballots are in. The ballots had already been removed from the envelopes, and if you noticed in that processing room, that's where they actually open the envelopes. But these ballots had already didn't have any envelopes. The ballots were scanned onto memory cards, as you saw, after the monitors left. That's another violation of Georgia law and not normal. The curvature of the room itself is not normal, and the fact that the monitors were so far roped off from the people who were doing the work, that again is not normal. None of this is normal, even though the Secretary of State's manager claims that it is. So without going into a lot of history with the Secretary of State's office, but they have continually streamed false information for the last couple of years, such as these machines would be cheaper than hand-marked paper ballots. We all know, even at that time, that that was true, and the Secretary of State's election director was called out nationally for that. So that's a little means, I think we've debunked the debunkers here, and let's just sum up with some compelling evidence for our last slide. First of all, the auditors have claimed they handled fraudulent ballots, and they have 4 affidavits to back that up. The monitors were told that processing would stop, but it continued. They have 2 affidavits to back that up. The election line feed shows huge spikes in Biden votes after ballots were processed. There are 2 affidavits to back that up. These are all sworn affidavits made under the penalty of perjury. The simple solution to this problem would be for Fulton County to show us the ballots, and then we can decide, are they, in fact, valid ballots or not? And then that way we could resolve the issue. We would know who won. Everybody would have to agree once we looked at the ballots. But instead, Fulton County refuses to do that. You saw the video evidence. If you've seen the president's legal team's video, the ballots appear to obviously be scanned illegally in violation of Georgia law. And in fact, one woman has even confessed to this crime on social media, one of the ones that's featured prominently in the video. She's prayed for forgiveness, and she's told the public she's lowering up according to her Facebook or social media posts. So that leaves me with my nonpartisan perspective as a 16-year nonpartisan 4-voter GA. I did not vote for either one of these presidential candidates. Constitution Party has their own candidate on the ballot. We have had a write-in candidate, Don Blankenship. We were not allowed to put his name on the ballot because of the restrictions in Georgia ballot access law, which are horrendous. But my point is that I have no dog in this hunt. I did not vote for either or 2 candidates, but the evidence is compelling and it's clear. This deal is real, and Georgia electors belong to the President of the United States.